Okay, hello guys, and welcome to your third and final, I think, InDesign demo. This one we are going to be putting a grid together in InDesign, and I'm going to start to lay out my version of the cookbook assignment, just so you kind of can get an idea of how to go about working on this very large project. Alright, so let's create something new. I gave you dimensions. They were 7.5 by 9.25. We definitely want facing pages. Let's put in, 3 pages to get started with. I'm going to start with just one column, standard 1/2-inch margins. We'll add some bleed. Always add bleed. And let's create this. Okay, so I mentioned, there's three ways to develop a grid. The first one being a baseline grid. So if you were interested in seeing a baseline grid, I'm going to stick that one in here real quick. So I'm on a PC, and this is one of the few things that is different between a PC and a Mac. So if you're on a PC, you're trying to get to your preferences, and it's under Edit, Preferences. If you're on a Mac, it's under the InDesign little icon on the far right, Preferences. And then once you find Preferences, you're going to go find Grids. Alright, so here we are going to start. We're going to create a baseline grid. It says right here, baseline grid. You can choose the color of your grid if you would like. The reason why they give you a choice is because if you were going to have like a blue page, you probably wouldn't want a blue grid because you wouldn't be able to see the grid lines. So that's the only reason why you would be changing the color. So for our purposes, blue is fine. This is where the grid is going to start. So it can start at relative to the top of the page or the top of the margin. We'll just have it start right at 0, the top of the page, and increments usually baseline grids are done in points because your font is done in points, but I think you could probably put in, so if you put in like an inches increment, like 1/4 of an inch, I put 0.25 and then I put IN so it knows I'm talking about inches, InDesign will convert it to points for me. So that's 18 points. So let's stick with 18 points. Alright, and this is talking about a document grid. So I'm not going to mess with this. I'll show you what that is. I find the document grid excessively overwhelming. Alright, so I'm going to click OK. Alright, so here is my document. We have to now, to see the baseline grid we just created, we've got to go under View, Guides and Grids, and we want to show the baseline grid. And there it is. So every 1/4 inch or 18 points, you see a horizontal line. That is your baseline grid. And like I said, it looks just like lined paper, right? That document grid, if you go under View, Guides and Grids, show document grid, that is this, and you can in preferences set this grid as well as far as like how big each cell is within the grid. I just don't want to look at it. I'm just going to turn it off. It's a little overwhelming for me. Let's say hi, document grid. Alright, so if you want to use a baseline grid, this is your baseline grid, and then as you start setting up your content, you have this grid to work with. So let me grab some content. And you could see, like, if I set, so we're going to set it like 11 because it's body copy. And in this text box, I could right click and choose text frame options. And then I can have it start, here you go, baseline options. We want it to start at, we'll say fixed, and then that will push it to the very top of your text box, which makes it a lot easier to align stuff to your baseline grid. So you can also set up custom baseline grids for just specific text boxes if for some reason you wanted to do that too. That's what this little area of this pop-up is doing. But again, this was text frame options, which I found under my right click. Okay, so now you can see Argentina like popped up to the top of this text frame, and now it's nicely on the baseline grid. So if I was trying to use a baseline grid appropriately, I would change my letting to have every line of type start on a new baseline. So it would look like this, which would look like this. And that is how you would do a baseline grid. So like if I had a picture, it would align to this grid as well, like so. Okay, so this is starting to put together a baseline grid. Obviously we would have to put some hierarchy of information in here, like Argentina clearly needs to be a lot bigger because it is the country start of this section. And we would want to put a bunch of space after it, like so. And then obviously move the whole thing down, so you can see how it's still on a baseline, but it's up really high on the page. So we're just gonna move this down. Here. There we go. Perfect. And then this guy will go here now. So you can see now Argentina is on a baseline, but this next line of type is not. So what we would have to do is really change the spacing. There you go. Now it's back on a baseline. And then this would come back up. Like so. Okay, so there you go. This is starting to fall into a baseline grid. Again, it's all these little horizontal lines that help you align things vertically. And we did it by going under our preferences, and on a PC that's under Edit, Preferences, Grid, and on a Mac it's under this little InDesign icon, Preferences, Grid. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off my baseline grid, hide the window or view, guides and grids, hide baseline grid. Okay, so that's gone. Okay, so now I'm going to just remove all this stuff. Okay, so now let's go and look at making a modular grid if you want to try to design your cookbook with a modular grid. Alright, so now I'm up in the master page because I'm going to set up this grid. Alright, so this document is about 7 wide, so if it was 2 columns, it always helps to have your handy dandy calculator around. Can I bring the calculator into this window? Yes, handy dandy calculator from the computer. Alright, so let's see. We said it was 7¼ and right now I've got 1/2 inch margin, so that would be -1 divided by 2. That would be columns of around 3 inches. That's pretty good. So maybe we'll do 2 column grid and then maybe 3 squares vertically. Alright, so let's set that up. I'm going to select both pages in InDesign, go up under Layout, Margins and Columns. Okay, let's see. 2 columns, add the gutter. That looks good. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So our gutter is 1875. We have to remember that. Okay, so now let's set up some horizontals. Alright, so because designers are not usually the best at math, we're going to kind of figure out the math this way. Alright, so the first thing we have to do is remember that the column gutter is 1875. So I'm going to just make a square that fits that column, and I can see up here it's 1875. So we're going to need that in a second. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure our inside margin, especially if you're going to have like a more wacky margin, which you totally can. Mine are 1/2 inches, so that's pretty easy to add together, but in case yours isn't, this is how I do math. Alright, so I drew a box from margin to margin. The height is 8 1/4. Okay, so go back to my calculator, which I lost. Where is the calculator? Calculator, okay. Delete. Okay, so it's 8 1/4, but we're going to have, if we want 3 rows to our modular grid, we're going to have 2, we'll call them row gutters as a fake term, that are that 1875. So we need 8 1/4 minus 1875 minus 1875. So our total height is really that number divided by 3. So each cell is 265. 265, okay. So up in here, it's 265. Alright, so now that is the height of a cell. So to make guides, we just drag down from the ruler, like so. But this did a page, and we really want to do this across the whole spread. So instead of dragging down onto the page, if we drag down onto the artboard to the side of the page, now our guide goes across the whole spread. Alright, so now I'll move that little spacer. I'm going to make another guide. Now, it's really important when you're doing this that you zoom in, because you can see that second guide I pulled was not exact. And I have to do it out here in past the page edge so that it goes across the whole spread. I definitely could have also like grabbed this box, gone to the bottom here at the using this properties palette up here, gotten this number, copied it, and then typed on this guide to make sure that that is the exact same number. Right, because the bottom of this square is where I want the guide. So, either way. Alright, so now let's do this again. I'm going to move that spacer down. We're going to move this spacer down. And we're going to zoom in. And we're going to put some guides outside the page trim on either side of that spacer. Okay, that's not exact. Let's see. It's supposed to be this number. Now it's exact. Okay. And if I zoom out, now this last one should be, yep, and if it's perfect, so now I know this grid makes sense. I'm just going to save these blocks over here just in case I want to change things later. Okay, so now I've set up this 6-cell modular grid per page. So let's try to put it into action. So I'm going to come back down here. So I'm going to skip page 1, which you all definitely can too. I want my divider page to be a spread. Okay, so I mean, we're working on part of a book. You can assume that sometimes your divider pages will be a spread and sometimes they'll just be a page, but you know, I think a spread will look nicer for what I have in mind, so I'm going to stick with a spread. Right, so I want to add a nice big picture. I'm going to add it to this part, this guide there, and then we're going to add a text box This is South America. And then we're going to add another text box that lists the countries. And then I think I'm going to put a color behind all of that stuff. So that is my plan based on my sketch that I made. Alright. So this is going to have to go to the back. So I'm going to just right click, arrange, send to back. Otherwise I could have gone up to the top here under, is it edit? Let's see. I don't know. Oh, object. Object, arrange, send to back. Okay. I like to right click. It's faster. Okay. Computer is taking a moment. There we go. Alright, so let's add in our copy. So where's our first block? It's hard to see now. Okay, so this is going to say South America. Let's make it a color. Make it orange. That seems South America-y. South America-esque, right? Vivid. Okay. And we'll make it a fun font. And we're going to make it big. Oh, not that big. There we go. Okay. I'm going to stick a picture in here so we can kind of pull some colors off the picture. So we go File, Place. Here are all my pictures. Let's see, what do I want? Oh, this waterfall's nice. I'm going to take the waterfall. Okay. So one thing I didn't tell you in the other demo about pictures is sometimes you bring in pictures, especially vector objects, and they start looking really pixely like this. It's not a issue with the resolution, because if I went over to links, you can see the effective PPI is 369, so that is not the problem. It's just a display issue. So if I right click on the picture, go to display performance and choose high quality, it will re-show you in high quality and it no longer looks pixelated, and this is more true to life on how it will really print. Okay, so there's my waterfall. So let's make this not black. Okay, so we're still working in CMYK because we are going to eventually print this out. I can use my eyedropper here and pull a blue that way. There we go. Okay, so you can eyedropper a picture to get a color. So that works. Alright, so let's pick up this orange. I'm going to put it in my swatches. So when I go in and paste in the countries, so as a designer, you pretty much avoid typing like at all costs, because if you type things, you have the chance of typing things incorrectly. So it's best to just avoid typing things at all, whenever possible. Alright, so let's do something kind of simple. Okay, and I'm going to make it just a green. And I actually think this is a perfect example of when I might want to use this distribute things for me evenly. There's an extra space down here. There we go. And this I would like to align to the bottom of that text box. Alright, zoom out a second. See what this is looking like. Alright, so that's not bad. I kind of want a little more space here. I am really bad about breaking my own grid rules. But, you know, we're using this modular grid as a baseline for what we're doing. Maybe we'll make this full bleed. Okay, send this to the back. And let's use a effect here to kind of get us, yeah, that looks kind of nice, right? Kind of make it a little bit more. There you go. Looks kind of cool. Now I can still see the waterfall. Alright, nice. I like that. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab these three things and just move them over so that they actually start on this side. That way South America fits nicer in that column anyway. Alright, so I think that looks kind of nice. There's my divider page. Alright, so if I was turning in this file, I would just, you always have to have a page 1 and it always has to be a right hand page. So if it's blank for my assignment, that's fine. You can always delete that page out in your PDF in Acrobat if it really bothers you and you want to start with the spread. Alright, so let's add some more pages. Okay, so the next thing we need is that editorial blurb. So let's grab that, copy, text box. I think that's going to be just full margin to margin. Alright, so one thing I want to point out is obviously we can eyedropper text. So like if I want to pull this, there we go. And I can kind of start to, well, at least like gets me a starting point to this text. Add some space between paragraphs. We will justify it. That's not bad. Oh yeah, and let's turn off the hyphens. I hate hyphens. Okay. We can start with that. Alright, so there's my little editorial, and now we're going to get into making the recipes. Alright, so let's get some text here. I'm going to grab like the first recipe, and the second recipe is like a little like subset of the first one, so let's just grab those two recipes to start. I personally like to throw my text over on the side. I just think it's easier. So before I paste in my text, I am going to change the font. I'm going to make it the same font that we've been using. Regular. I'm going to set it to like 10 point because now we're getting into the body copy. Maybe over 13. I want it to be black, so it's already set to black. Alright, so now when I go to paste, all the text comes in the font I'm pretty much planning on using. I like to keep it over on the sidebar though, just because I'm more than likely going to end up with a few different text boxes, and I just think it's easier to copy and paste from there. Alright, so maybe this one I would want to be this font, so I can do a couple things. I can just copy this font, paste it over here, and then eyedropper it. Another thing I can do is, I'm just going to copy it over again. I can create something called styles. So over on the sidebar here, you might have noticed that there are paragraph and character styles. These allow you to say, I want all of my headlines maybe to look a certain way, like how the South America is set. Or I want all the body copy to look a certain way. And now instead of having to eyedropper between different text blocks to copy the same styles, we can just save the style once and apply it through this styles palette. So let's do that. The thing to note is there's paragraph styles and character styles. The paragraph styles are going to affect an entire paragraph, so think like a whole chunk of text. A character style is going to be individual letters or words. You're going to use character styles for things like drop caps, if you want to bold certain words in the text document, if you want a hyperlink to be like, a color underline, individual special things you're going to style within the larger paragraph style would be your character styles. So creating styles are really, really easy because once you've designed how you want it to look on your page, you just highlight it and you go new style. And we can give it a name like divider headline or whatever would make sense. And we are going to do apply divider headline, and there you go. So if I click into the divider headline, you can see the style that we set up. So if you have text highlighted when you go to create a new style, it just copies over whatever you have highlighted. So we're using Social Gothic, Demi Bold, size 32, and this orange color. But this just shows you, if you click through it, how many things you can really do within a style. It's very robust. And as you get more comfortable in InDesign and setting your text, you are going to definitely embrace styles. So we're just going to hit OK. Alright, so now we have this style. If you see the plus sign, that means that there is some overrides in your block. So I know that it should all just be the same style, so I can right click and say apply divider headline clear overrides, and the plus sign goes away. Plus sign isn't a bad thing, it's just letting you know that there's other stuff besides your pure style in that block of text. So we're going to highlight this Argentina, we're going to click divider headline, we're going to click clear overrides, and there we go. There it is, Argentina. Okay, so I think the easiest thing to do is to design your text and then create styles off your text to flow the rest of your document. So we're going to create like one spread, make it look how we want it to look, and then we're going to make styles around it, and then it'll be much faster to flow in the rest of our document. So that is our plan. And then, thinking about how this is a larger cookbook with more than one section, you would use, if this section that you designed, you sent it off, it got approved, you would then go through and make a larger template to flow in all the other sections. So all of the editorials look like this, all the divider pages look like the last spread, all the recipes look the same through the whole book. So that is where this grid system and these styles really shine. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to pull out this little descriptor. We will put that across the whole thing. Maybe we'll make it orange. Okay. And then we have our recipe. Put that here. So this is the name of the dish. So let's make that bold and bigger. There we go. These are the ingredients. Then this starts, let's bold that, the directions on what to do. Alright. So I'm going to use a little spacer. Spacers are like a designer's best friend. So this is the height of my column gutter. So I'm going to use that just as a spacer between these two lines of text to see how I like that. I'm going to push the here down because that looks better. Okay. Alright, so let's see how this is looking. Alright, not bad. I think this list of ingredients could use a little spacing, right? So let's add some space after. That's too much. Let's type a number in here. Yep, I think this needs some space after too. Okay, that's not bad. And then maybe we can put, I'm going to link this text box to another text box. There we go. And I'm going to force the instructions to the next column. And if you have a full keyboard with a number pad, it's the Enter key off of the number pad. So like the very, very last right key on your whole keyboard forces a column break. If you don't have that key on your keyboard, you can just go up under Type, Insert Break Character, Column Break. And there you go. Okay, so then we're going to need to fix our numbering because that looks pretty ugly. But otherwise, this is looking pretty good. Okay. You have a few ways you can fix this numbering. If you go up to the top of your bar, you can see right here there's a 1, 2. There's also bullets. If I click that, you'll get auto numbering from InDesign or bullets. So you can do it that way and then delete out the 1s and 2s that were in the text document. I can open the tabs under Type, Tabs, and then I can add a tab to this indent so it's not quite as wacky, like that. I can also use, again at the top of my toolbar, right here. This little icon is saying we can indent a paragraph in. So I'm going to indent it in a 1/4 of an inch, and then I can pull the first line out, minus 0.25. And there, since I have my, and then that plus my tab, let's make the tab 0.25 also. Type, tabs, yeah, 0.25. There we go. Now I have a nice little list. The cheater way to do this same list is, I'm going to just copy these couple numbers. Okay, so let's turn on our hidden characters so you can see what's happening here. Okay, so this double arrow means tab. There's some hard returns. So this is like text, tab, text, and we force the first line to go out further than the rest of it. I'm just going to paste those same couple instructions down here. Alright. And we're going to take out all of this spacing that we just put in. I'm going to get a mad angry number. You got to delete this one first. Okay. So another way we can do it if you're like not into tabs and spacing is instead of this tab here, I can just use the space bar to create however much space I want. And then seeker key command, I'm going to hit Control Pipe, which is the key between the backspace and the enter. And that forces all the lines of text within that paragraph to line up wherever you put that special break character. And that way I am creating the same type of list, but it's like a little bit faster maybe because you're just hitting spacebar and then shift pipe to create that break. And if I do this, it ends up achieving the exact same results. So that is your cheater hint for the day of how to make, this works for bullets a lot too. That's like how I always make bullets. Okay, so let's delete that. so one other thing, I definitely want to put some spacing between these listed numbers too. Let's see, what was the spacing? 0.04. Let's try that. Okay, see how this is looking. Oh, that looks pretty good. Zoom out a little bit here. Get a good view of my whole page. Okay, I kind of like that. I could go with that idea. So I am using my 2 columns. I'm using this horizontal line, which is the same horizontal line as on this page. So there's some consistency there. Okay, so let's do our last recipe. So this is like the same recipe, but chicken. Alright, so one thing to keep in mind is you can't make new text blocks on top of existing text blocks. See how my cursor here is just to edit this text. I want to make a new text block, so I gotta come outside of it to draw a text block. Paste that in. And then I'll just move it over here, so now it's on top of the other text blocks. Okay, so let's make that match this, because they're both recipes, right? And then this is the same text size and everything as that. Yep, I could just click and look up at the top and see that they're the same. So that would be good. Let's see. We would probably want to have some specific amount of space. Maybe it's like 2 of these guys. Yeah, that was close to what I'd already done, so we'll call it 2 of those guys. My little spacers. I had to pull that text block up to be able to grab my little spacers. Okay. Let's put this in preview mode and see what it looks like. Oh, that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm happy with that. So that will be... Maybe I want to put a picture at the top too. Let's put in a picture again. File, place. Let's see. That looks like a chicken dish. Here we go. And I'm just going to put this... We'll do it like this. So since I brought it in without making a text box first, it's bringing it in proportionate, which obviously is too big and not exactly what I wanted. So there's the benefit to drawing your text block first. But either way, works. Alright, so let's take this guy. There you go, chicken. Alright, so there is my first spread of recipes. Probably it's a good idea to save it right now, just so we don't lose our work. We're going to call this Cookbook Grid Cookbook. This is demo 3. Okay, save. Alright. Okay, so now we can start to set up these different styles and then apply them to the next set of recipes and see if we like what we've done, if it's going to work for a whole cookbook. Alright, so let's see. We've got this style. I can also go under these 3 lines and do new paragraph style. And that way I auto get the pop-up box as well. So this is going to be we're going to call it the recipe summary. You can call it whatever you want, that you know what it means. And say OK. We're going to call this text is like just general body copy text. Because that is your most basic text type. And then this, we are going to base it off of body copy. So now you've got body copy plus extra spacing. That's the only difference. So that's, you can see how that really changed the style settings. So now if we changed body copy to a different font, say, this style would also update. It would be whatever body copy is plus the extra spacing. So that's really important to know. So we're going to call this ingredients list. Okay. And then this style. So if I had done my cheater way to make tabs with just spaces and that force line break, I could have applied the same style to both of these lists because they both have that 0.04 spacing. But because I have the tab and the indents, it's going to have to be its own style. And we're going to call it steps. Numbered steps. Alright, and we're going to base it on body copy. Alright, so okay. And did we do this one? No, let's do this one. One more. We can also base this one on body copy. It's just bold and the space after is different. And the but it's not 10 point, it's bigger than 10 point, isn't it? Well, let's just base it on nothing then. It claims it's still 10 point. Sure looks a lot bigger than that. Alright, we're going to call this recipe names. Oh, because there was a problem here. What is this? 12. Oh, it's supposed to be 12 point. Alright, well you'll see this change in a second. Let's do this. Move that out of the way. That might have been our problem. Recipe names, I think it's wrong. Let's fix this one. I'm going to double click to pop up the window. We want it to be 12 point. There we go. Oh, that's what this one was. This was 12 over 13. 12 over 13. Yeah, so now we're good. So we can name this one recipe name. So now that you've made the styles, you have to go back through and reapply them to all of your stuff. Numbered steps. So this text is body copy, but it was bold. So that is where a character style would come into play. So with nothing highlighted, we're going to just create a new style. And we're going to call it bold. And all we want to change is we want this to say bold. So it's giving you the choice of every variant that you could possibly have. So if you pick a variant that's not in the font family that you are using, you're going to get an error. But I'm pretty sure we're just using bold. So let's see. If I highlight this and hit bold, now it's bold. Perfect. Okay, so I think we've actually applied styles to, oh, I missed this one. Summary. Okay, I think we've applied styles to everything here. I'm going to save this again. Alright, so now we're going to go on to the next page of our document and we're going to see how easy or hard it is to use our styles and our grid. Alright, so I'm going to come into my Word document. I'm going to take the next recipe. Let's take the next couple recipes down to Bolivia. Alright, and we're using one paragraph for the introduction, and then we've got the recipe in a couple blocks is how we're doing this. Alright, so I'm just going to put the whole thing right here. I'm going to give this whole thing body copy style. Okay. So here was and you can even, now that you have your styles created, now that everything's in one text block, you can go through and that's the summary, that's the recipe name, this is the ingredients, this we're going to turn bold, this is the numbered steps. Okay, so that whole thing is now formatted. So let's put it in place. Okay, so the only thing we're not getting is the spacing. And there is a way to do all of this in one giant paragraph text block, but it's a little more advanced than I feel like is necessary for you guys to get on your first InDesign project out of the gate. So we're just going to embrace using multiple text blocks and some spacers. Okay. So this just needs to be I realize that's not perfect, but we'll go with it. So like this is an ugly line break. We're going to do that. Okay, move this up. So this is like a much shorter recipe, I think. Link the text boxes. Yeah. So I'm going to put that in the other paragraph. We're going to make a guide. You can use your arrow keys to move the guides to get it more exact. Same thing with these text blocks. Sometimes it's easier just to use your arrow keys. Alright, so there was one recipe. Here's another recipe. Empanadas. I really want to make these. I have not had the chance. This is bold. Numbered steps. Oh, so this just before baking is also bold because it's like the next activity. And then this is the filling. Figure out how we want to treat that. It's like kind of the same but kind of different. Alright. So I think we're going to use that double height spacer again. So that would be pretty sure you can actually, it doesn't work. Okay, 1875 times 2. Let's see, where's my calculator? $375. Perfect. Let's make this guy $375. Okay. Then how much space we'll give each recipe. Okay, let's move this block over here. Make it this big. And let's hope this all fits. Okay, so I'm sure at this point you've definitely gotten the point of how to do this. And, oh, that fits right there, perfect. Hopefully you find it kind of fun. It's like a big puzzle. So, if you like puzzles, maybe you'll like this activity. Alright, so obviously now I've run into a problem where the next recipe does not look near as nice as the one before it. Let's add some more pages. Okay, so what should I do? This is where, as a designer, you get to start making design decisions. Alright, so this is the last recipe before we change countries. This recipe is really shorter, but so maybe we could switch the order of these recipes. It doesn't look like it's in any kind of alphabetical order. So we can maybe do that, or if you're not allowed to change the order, maybe we just do this and we put in a picture right here. Would be my next option because of the way I am doing this grid. I can't really break it across pages. I think that will look weird. Okay, I think we're going to do it like this. This probably would not really fly because I'm wasting so much space. So this probably is showing you that there's a problem with my page design where these recipes are not fitting like two on a page, and I have a lot of dead space, which is not ideal since every page costs money, and this is going to be like a big 400 something page book. So I would say at this point, if this was like an actual project I was working on, I would have to go back through and reevaluate how I'm laying out the copy and try to get it to fit tighter. Like one thing I could definitely do is put these little intro sentences in the same column. So that would probably be one quick way to make this take up less space, is to try to keep it all within one column, like this. Let's see if how that looks, and then I'm going to send you all off, if you haven't already ditched me by now, to make your own, to do your own projects. So that gets closer to fitting. I'm just missing the fruit and meat filling. And honestly, if this was really a recipe book, see, like I would be okay with swapping these two columns, I think, and then sticking this tiny, like next to this, like that. I think that would be okay. Or honestly, this could probably live up here and put a picture right here. The only problem is Bolivia starts next. It wouldn't just be another recipe. But something like this is already looking a lot better, I think. Okay, so hopefully this is starting to make sense on how you do a grid layout. Your third grid layout option is more organic, it would literally be designing, the spread the way you like it, and then using some of these alignments to pull your guides and just carry those alignments through your document. So you're not necessarily worrying about segmenting each page into specific quadrants, but you're more just laying out a page and then trying to use some of those same spacings through the rest of your document, pulling some guides and copying your guides from page to page. And you can copy guides from page to page if you, oopsies, from the ruler. If you put a guide in here, if I click on the guide, it turns blue, and I just do copy, I come to another page and I do paste, you get the guide on that page. So you can definitely copy guides from page to page, or you can just put them in your master page and then they'll be on every page. Alright, so hopefully watching me work for a little bit was not too super boring and kind of helped you understand how you should go about designing your book. Alright, so good luck. Get in touch with me if you have any questions or comments, and I look forward to seeing what y'all come up with.